Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are going to be looking at Sylvan's upcoming Forgotten collection. Sylvanclaw, if you don't know, is a small indie brand based in Louisiana, and they have such cool, whimsical, and mysterious kind of collection themes. So the Forgotten collection is a 7-piece lineup inspired by the eerie feeling of these abandoned buildings frozen in time. It also features 2 new finishes to Sylvanclaw's catalog. We have their first magnetic and 2 new thermals. So as always, I will save more of my thoughts for the end of the video after comparisons. For now, let me just show you the swatches. First up we have Apparition, a ghostly semi-sheer white base packed with glowing iridescent shimmer that shifts between green and pink. You already know I love an ethereal glowy white, so this was going to be one of my immediate favorites. It has such a lovely silky smooth formula that was really even coverage, just sheer as expected, but I would say because it's so even, you could get away with wearing this in 1, 2, or 3 coats depending on your preference or the look that you're going for. It's just gonna look nice either way, and I found the shimmer in this was especially glowy too, having that bright lime green color head on that shifts to a soft pink, almost purpley color in extreme angles. Next up we have Timeless, which is a bronze metallic microflake. This actually has a clear base that's super packed with those tiny micro flakies, so the first coat does have a decent amount of coverage, but you'll definitely need a second one to even everything out and build it to full opacity. I don't see a lot of people needing more than 2 coats for this one. I guess maybe if your nails are much longer than mine, but this is one of those shades that I think is easy enough to build up on its own where you don't need to sponge it on. I thought this was such a beautiful, bright, coppery bronze. I just love how the flakies catch the light. The next shade is Ashes to Dust, which is Sylvanclaw's very first magnetic. So this is described as a gray crelly base with a gold magnetic shimmer and fiery iridescent flakies in the background. I was so surprised to read that this was gray because I was gonna call it a very warm taupe shade. It's kind of one of those colors that does toe the line between gray and brown. There's like a little bit of a purpley undertone as well. So I think that's the natural nail coming through, so maybe this is one of those polishes that will just look really different depending on your skin or undertones. It had a nice formula too. It was a little bit on the crelly side but very pigmented, and it magnetized easily with the cat eye effect, but I found it kind of subtle in the velvet. Up next we have Velvet Dream, which is described as an old money green shimmer. So I would almost call this a metallic finish because the shimmer is so incredibly fine and smooth. It's very densely packed, so I feel like it just lends itself to giving a metallic look without being very brushstrokey. And I also don't think I would call this a green. I feel like it is very teal. There is a strong blue undertone to it. I mean, I think the actual base color is like a very dark, almost navy color. It doesn't really read as green to me at least, but either way it is super gorgeous, and it had another flawless formula, easily opaque for me in 2 coats. So Sylvanclaw is also releasing their first 2 thermals with this collection, and the first one here is called Undead, which is a black when cold to turquoise when warm thermal base filled with a pink shimmer. As you can see, it's applying more in the cold state, but I'm starting to run warm, so you will see this transition in a moment. The formula was really smooth, really easy to work with. I would say maybe a little bit on the crelly leaning side, but as you can tell, it's still very highly pigmented, so it built up easily and beautifully for me in just 2 coats, though I could see some people wanting a 3rd coat to intensify the color, especially for the warm state. Obviously, I think the pink shimmer is cute, and it does stand out the most, or maybe the best, over the black or cold state. It does kind of get a little lost in the warm state, unfortunately. And the other thermal is called Wilted Rose, which is described as a purple to red thermal with a pink shimmer. So I personally would say this is like more of a dusty lavender color, like the purple is a bit more muted, and the red or cold state to me reads a little bit more berry leaning. So again, just more muted, but I love this one. I thought the colors were so gorgeous, and they also complemented the pink shimmer so beautifully. I'm assuming it's the same pink shimmer as the last thermal, but it just looks a little bit more glowy in this one. I would say the formula was also the same, a little bit on the crelly side and decently opaque for me in 2 coats, but again, I could see some people wanting a third to deepen the color for the warm state, or more importantly, to build up coverage. And rounding out the collection is Bat, which is a graphite black linear holo filled with a glowing purple shimmer. So I initially wasn't super drawn to this one in the bottle, but ended up really liking it on the nail. The purple glow just stands out so nicely against this base color. I just thought it was so beautiful and contrasty. And I was also impressed to see just how hollow this was under my desk lighting. Obviously, holographics look the best in direct sunlight or under flash, and there's a lot that aren't impressive in indoor lighting, but this one definitely had a strong rainbow sparkle. And here is my thumb swatch collage for the Forgotten collection. Definitely a very interesting theme and color palette. It seems maybe not the most cohesive, but I guess, you know, when you take into account the inspiration, I'm a lot more forgiving and it kind of makes sense. Moving on to comparisons, we're starting with Apparition, and I wanted to show this next to Crack's Skelly bones from their recent Halloween collection. It's another sheer, shimmery kind of white, but that one has more of the pink shimmer head on as opposed to green, so I knew I also had to show this next to Mooncat's Pixiestick, which unfortunately is no longer around. I thought these were going to be almost dead on dupes, and I was pretty surprised to see just how different they ended up being. To me, it looks like Pixiestick is a little bit more sheer, less crelly and buildable, and the shimmer is also a lot more glowy. Next for Timeless, I first pulled out Mooncat's The Trouble with Immortality, but realized that that is a much more aged copper kind of color. It doesn't have that brighter orangey tone, so I didn't end up comparing it on the nail, but I do think it has a similar micro flaky finish. But I thought Prism's Gilded Grudge would be a lot closer, at least they look that way in the bottle, but seeing them on the nail, you can tell that Prism has that much smoother shimmer kind of finish as opposed to a metallic. And for some other quick color references, here it is next to Holo Taco's Bottle Service, which is a little bit like that metallic finish, but that one's a bit more gold, or maybe not a true gold, but just more yellow, and Olivav's Pigment, which is a bit darker. Next for Velvet Dream, I immediately wanted to see this next to Shrub It Off and Crack's Wicked Root. Shrub It Off just had that same kind of dark teal color, but it does have this brighter aqua blue shimmer and these hollow flakies, but I thought the base looked kind of similar, and I would argue it does in certain angles, but overall Velvet Dream is the closest to Wicked Root, especially in terms of finish and color, but it is a bit more teal, less green. Next for Undead, I knew I had to pull out my bottle of Cadillacquer's Eerie, which was an old polish pickup shade. It's another black to teal thermal that unfortunately isn't really transitioning anymore. You can see just how dark the teal base got over the years, where it was closer to how Sylvanclaw looks, but I would say maybe more vibrant, so it wouldn't be a dupe anyway. Not to mention the flakies in Eerie. Next for Wilted Rose, I wanted to show this next to Apocalypse's You've Got Red on You, which is a red to pink thermal with a pink shimmer. And like I've mentioned before with Apocalypse, it doesn't really read as red to me in the cold state. It's more of like a berry pink color, so I thought it would be a little closer, but the pink shimmer is the only thing they have in common. Lastly for Bat, here it is next to Mooncat's Antifragile, which is the dark purple linear holo. You can tell that that one's just a bit more of a true purple. The base in Bat, again, is more of a charcoal gray. So I thought some other closer colors would be Crack's Crisis Averted or Charred, which are kind of on both ends of the spectrum. Crisis Averted doesn't have any gray in it. It's more of a dark indigo sort of color with a aqua blue shimmer. And then Charred is just a dark gray linear holo with no shimmer. So you can see that Bat is definitely the lightest, but also the most holo and shimmery. I do wonder if Bat would probably be closest to ILNP's Penthouse, which I already destashed unfortunately. That one is supposed to be a purple, but kind of reads as gray, though it doesn't have any shimmer. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for Sylvanclaw's Forgotten collection. As always, I can't wait to hear what you think of this release because I really enjoyed it. I've come to love the way that Sylvanclaw just paints this picture with all of their collection themes, and I really appreciate how their themes are just so unique and so much more than just the typical fairy fantasy kind of vibe that we normally see. Like this lineup being inspired by that eerie feeling of like abandoned buildings is just so cool. So I really love that for it. I feel like it does give, you know, Halloween vibes without being too on the nose, maybe with the exception of Apparition. But yeah, the polishes themselves were fantastic. Pretty much what I've come to expect from Sylvanclaw. I know I've only been reviewing them for a few months, it feels like, but they have quickly come to impress me with how silky smooth their formulas are, especially in combination with the rounded paddle brush. It just makes application a dream. When it comes to their new finishes, I thought the magnetic was nice. Like it was a nice color, it was unique, at least to my collection. I definitely don't have anything like it, but I wouldn't say it was like my favorite by any means, though that is mostly like personal preference. Objectively, I think it did magnetize well and easily, though I still would say that it's probably stronger in the cat eye effect versus the velvet being a little bit softer looking. So it does make me curious to see how their future magnetics will kind of perform, if they'll all have that slightly softer velvet vibe, or if they'll have like a little bit more color contrast. I'm definitely excited to see that, but as far as the formula goes, it was lovely. And for the thermals, I mean, you guys know I always have to give my little disclaimer of feeling meh on thermals because they just have a shorter shelf life, which means at some point they will stop transitioning. And that sucks, obviously, because, you know, with nail polish, it's come a long way where it can pretty much last forever. But there are some exceptions to specific finishes like thermals, even neons that tend to fade after a few years, even some metallic finishes that tend to tarnish. So unfortunately, thermals do fall under that category. And I also mainly feel this way because my collection is just really large at this point, and I personally don't cycle through my polishes as often as other people. So chances are a thermal is gonna start to fade or just straight up die in my collection before I make a good dent in it, you know? But if you do have a smaller collection, or if you are just somebody who constantly wears thermals, I feel like these are great. Again, the formulas were nice. I thought the color transitions for both of them were really nice. I would say that Wilted Rose is easily my favorite one. I just like love the colors, the shimmers. It's just so pretty. But I would say my favorite part about the thermals is their price point, where these new thermals and even the magnetic retail for $13.50, which is the same cost as their other finishes. Personally, I think that is a huge plus because, as you might know, so many other brands, I feel like almost every other brand pretty much marks up the prices, especially for their thermals and magnetics. And I think the thermals is like especially crazy because, again, those die. So to pay so much more for something that's not guaranteed to last is a little wild, you know, but at least these are the same price and just several dollars cheaper compared to other thermals on the market. The only grain of salt that I'll like mention with thermals is because these are Sylvanclaw's very first thermals, we kind of just have to wait and see, you know, how they'll hold up. So fingers crossed, you know, these will definitely stand the test of time, but yeah, I'm still overall a big fan of them. And if you're interested in picking any of them up, the Forgotten collection is going to be launching this Friday, October 17th at 8 a.m. Central Time. So I will have Sylvanclaw's website linked in the description box down below, and I would love to hear what you thought of these. Which ones are your favorites? Are there any that you're planning on trying? Let me know any and all thoughts you have down in the comments so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!